Afternoon.
We have a few more students to wait for, but now we'll just go ahead and get started. Okay, please make the mandala mudra, please. Here is the great earth filled with the smell of incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, the four continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create, from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration and wisdom, may I attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create, from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration and wisdom, I will attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. Okay. Let's do some rejoicing. Jackie, you're up first.
Hello, dearest angels. Lovely to be together. Rejoicing for being back, staying with family again, looking after family, and really appreciating that whilst it's a busy and challenging time for many, that it also brings us together and we can connect with each other and we can help to provide all the support service and have everything that needs to be taken care of to be able to take the responsibility on the best that I can to look after my family. Thank you.
Excellent. And that'll give you the care you need down the road. Trying to get this back. There we go. Okay. Natalia, what do you have to rejoice in?
I'm rejoicing that I'm able to help record all the videos for ACI and to join wonderful courses that they are providing and to learn. And thank you so much for your teachings.
No, you're welcome. Okay, Katya.
Hi, hello. I rejoice that I finished course number 5 and I have my certificate.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yay.
Yay.
Okay, Sheila.
I rejoice that today in the morning I received a message of gratitude of Bante. It's a bhikkhu or a monk of the Theravada lineage. And in every month, we send to him an offer, an economically or a financial offer, offering. And I rejoice that he sent us a message very beautiful.
Oh, good, good. Okay, who's next? Just leave Svetlana. No, there's Yevgeny too. Svetlana, what do you have to rejoice in?
Hello, everyone. I would like to rejoice that I observe that it is becoming easier for me to help other people. Today, I observed that I managed not only to set a rebroadcast, but start translating the class when translation was off. And I understand that previously it would be unimaginable. I would think about some distraction thoughts, but now I found some strength and started to give my help in some other way as well. So I would like to rejoice and dedicate it to further help, to get further help if I need in some cases.
Very good. That's exactly what you need to do, and that's going to generate the help you need down the road. So very good. Evgeny, do you have something you can rejoice in?
Да, спасибо большое. Я хотел бы порадоваться двум вещам. У меня есть возможность, трем даже вещам. У меня есть возможность проходить прекрасный курс под названием Lama. Это первый, наверное, серьезный курс после ACI, к которому я очень серьезно отношусь. Второе, это у меня есть возможность проходить курс на ассистентов учителей, пока я не готов учительский курс проходить. И третье, что у меня есть возможность записывать такой прекрасный курс с досточтимым Sumati и помогать здесь распространять эти знания.
Okay, so he's rejoicing that he's able to join the Lama course and study after ACI courses, study the secret teachings, and that he's able to join the teacher's assistant course for ACI teacher's assistant, and that he's able also to record the classes for you, Venerable Sumati.
Oh, very good. Very good. Okay, my turn. What do I want to rejoice in? I rejoice that I have the opportunity to teach the ACI courses in Lam Rim. I rejoice that my medicine is still working for me. And I wish that others' medicine for everybody works. I'll do my best to make sure everybody that I know that needs medicine gets it. What else? Well, I've discontinued one of my medications because it doesn't seem to be doing anything. And I'm almost to the point where I'm not taking it anymore. And so far, I haven't noticed any downside to it. Sometimes when you stop taking the medicine, you can get some withdrawal symptoms. And so far, I have not. So I rejoice in that. Yeah, that's about it. Okay, so now we're on the next class. We're in the middle of the 5 problems. We've been discussing detecting when your mind is too dull or too agitated. And that's a difficult thing to describe. So it's more a matter of actually doing the meditations. And that's what the second course, Lam Rim number 2, was a meditation retreat they did the month after, 2 months after they took course 1. So we'll be going through the meditations and trying to identify dullness and agitation next course. So just hang in there and we'll get a better description of what we're talking about when we take course 2. So the 4th meditation problem is to detect when your mind has gotten too low or too high. You have to do something. So problem number 4 is you're supposed to do something and you didn't. You become aware you're getting dull, those dull, gross or subtle dullness, gross or subtle agitation. And instead of doing something about it, you don't, and you lose your meditation object. So you have to apply the appropriate antidote, which we'll describe in just a minute. You should stay on your cushion. Don't switch objects unless you absolutely have to. Subtle dullness is taken care of inside the meditation. All you have to do is tighten up a bit on the object. And it's hard for me to describe that, but we'll work on that in the next course. If you tighten down too much, you end up getting agitation. So it's a constant process of correction, and we we described the idea of driving a vehicle in a narrow road with curbs on either side. You have to constantly make small adjustments to avoid hitting the curb on either side. So that we don't want to hit the curb of dullness and we don't want to overcorrect and hit the curb of agitation. So that's my best description. Antidotes for dullness. Best object is thought to think how lucky you are to be alive and healthy and have the Dharma and perfect human conditions in a joyful way. When you're uplifted, shift back to the original object. The thoughts of the benefits of behaving well toward your Lama will accumulate virtue while your focus is away from the original object. Another antidote is to focus on a bright light. To think of the good qualities of the Buddha. That's another possible antidote. Looking out across a vista, which is part of our meditation next course, that often can help. You can break the meditation and stretch. That's kind of a last resort. Any of the solutions where you break your meditation is you're trying to not have to do that. You could get up and go to a cold place to get refreshed if you're in a hot climate. I like just looking out a window and going to a wide vista. Our retreat cabin, each of the rooms had a large window, and you could, if necessary, you could look out across the vista without leaving your cushion. I designed it that way purposely. And I ended up putting my meditation bench where I had to turn to look out the window, but it still worked pretty well. If you feel you're about to think about lunch, then you need to loosen up a bit. If you detect you aren't as deep in the meditation as you want to be, you tighten up. And if you go too far, then you have to loosen again. By the time we hit level 4, number 4, it's about an appropriate amount of correction. And you only will learn what that appropriate amount is until once you actually get meditating and experience the problem. So like I said, this is hard to describe, but we'll be working on this much more fully in next course. So one of the antidotes for agitation is the mind wants to go out and work on something else. So in this case, one of these antidotes is to meditate on impermanence. You can think about the suffering you can see in the world. There is suffering you can't see. It brings the mind down a little bit. You might get a little sad. You don't want to throw your mind into getting depressed, but it brings you down, can bring you down from being too excited about something. So for me, the way I did it was I thought about how fortunate I was to be in retreat for the dullness, and then for agitation, I would think how awful it would be if I couldn't complete the retreat. Another way to get around agitation that I used often was to count your breath. The way you do a breath meditation and the way we should be doing it when we count our breath is you think of the breath leaving the body and breath coming back in. That's breath number 1. You start on an exhale. So you exhale slowly, same amount of time on the in-between breath, at least that's what I do, and then inhale. So you want to count to 10 about, I try counting to 10 on the out breath and 10 in between breaths and 10 going out. It's rather quick, but so you have to find what's comfortable for you. I can get my breath down to about 4 or 5 per minute fairly easily. If you're able to count 21 breaths without thinking of anything else, absolutely, then you've reached the first level of meditation, which is just having the object slightly, you're on the object a little bit and more frequently off of it. If you try to use the antidote of the breath and don't succeed, you can break the session. Lord Buddha and Pabonka Rinpoche mentioned the idea of your meditation session. Before you sit, you should have decided how long you're going to sit. You don't want to go too long. You don't want to go too short. But you don't want to, how can I describe this? You don't want to go too long to the point where you don't want to meditate anymore. You want to look at your cushion and want to sit and meditate. So Geshe mentions that, and Pabonka Rinpoche mentions that you should stop your meditation while you're still having a good time. You never want to stop meditating on a bad note. So with the death meditation, now, I'm not sure why I put that in the notes. Let me think about that for a minute. Oh, you never stop meditating on a bad note. And he would change his subjects here a little bit. In the death meditation, one of the key aspects of the death meditation is to get your affairs in order and not be thinking about things that you wish you'd done. So when I rolled my truck and was facing possible death, because I'd done the death meditation and knew that I shouldn't be worried about having not told my wife I loved her or being in an argument, we had a set of rules that we tried to abide by and have been trying to abide by in our marriage. And one of them is never leave the house angry. If you're upset with your wife or your husband, don't leave the house angry and then get in an accident and be thinking as you're maybe dying, be thinking, oh, I wish I hadn't said that to my wife or my husband. You don't want that on your mind. So the simplest solution to that is simply don't leave the house with being angry at your spouse or your kids. Another thing is we tried to never go to bed angry. We didn't have many instances of anger between us over our some 48 years of marriage. We really didn't. Well, I probably am forgetting them, but I tried very hard not to leave the house angry at anybody. So when I rolled my truck, what didn't come to mind was I wish I had said something more or less to my wife or to anybody else. I think that'd be a terrible feeling to be endangered and maybe in a death situation and be regretting something you've done. Another thing you don't want to have on your mind is obligations. I had borrowed, this seems trivial, but when it had the death meditate, when I rolled my truck, it was very important. I had borrowed some picture frame clamps from a friend in high school and I still had them, and that was some 20 years ago. And so when I did the death meditation course, I realized that I boxed up the clamps and I sent them back to Jim Delwich, a good friend at the time, and with a note saying I was sorry I hadn't returned them earlier. And because frequently that would come up in my mind, as that was an obligation that I had that I hadn't fulfilled. So I made sure that I'd taken care of that. And when I rolled my truck, I didn't think at all about that because I had completed that obligation. So if you have obligations to family members or to friends that you've been putting off, I urge you to take care of them now so they aren't weighing on your mind in the future. And so that brings us back to meditation. You don't want to go into meditation, into your retreat with obligations unfulfilled. So that's why in the weeks before your retreat, I make a list of what tasks I have to do. If I've committed to find a piece of information for a fellow student or a teacher or my wife, I make sure I do that. The other thing I do is I make sure I don't make obligations that are going to impact my retreat. If I have to do something, I say I'll be done with my retreat on this date. I will get back to you with that information. As long as you give someone a date that you'll work on, most people won't make you do something about it during your retreat. Okay. Stop at a place where you feel like you could still go on for a while. Stop your meditation on good terms. If the meditation is not clear and things aren't going well, try to fix it several times. And if it's not going well and you can't fix it, that's when you have to give up and end your meditation. But you have to be careful. You don't want to convince yourself you're not meditating well. And, oh, I'm not meditating well today, I'm going to give up. You really don't want to do that until you've come to the conclusion that you simply can't stay on the object. Maybe your knee really hurts, your back really hurts, you've got a headache. Things happen and you try and tough it out. And when you can't, then just realize it and accept it and promise yourself that you're going to do better next time. That's usually a matter of putting too long, deciding you're going to meditate for too long. That's why Geshe says increase a minute a week instead of 5 or 10 minutes. It's amazing how long 5 minutes is when you're learning to meditate. So right now, I'm starting over on my meditation. So I do a breath meditation for 3 minutes. And I have a little alarm that chimes. And then I'm sitting an additional 6 minutes working on my object. And I've increased it a minute per week. With the source of all my good meditation or the death meditation, I can stay focused on my object for 45 minutes without too much trouble. But if I'm thinking about something other than those two, well, I can also do that with my White Tara sadhana, but that's because I have a very good memory. You call me grandfather, I guess. Okay. So now we're going to go. Geshe, we're very fortunate to have a Lama available to us that's had the direct perception of emptiness. So this next bit of class and the next class after this is a class on how things work and how you can help and change the world, remove poverty and illness and the problems from the world. It's a section on tweaking reality. He's going to try and use the deep states of meditation to see the code that underlies reality and then tweak it to stop war and illness and death itself. So we're going to be studying the meditation part in this course, which you need to see the code. He's talking about having the direct perception of emptiness. You have to get into a deep meditation to see emptiness and to understand emptiness. Then we're going to study this and how to manipulate it. And then once we understand that, we're going to go back and start at the beginning of the book, applying the meditation and the ability to tweak our reality in each step. So Geshe Michael says he struggled with emptiness for years in a monastery. His teacher challenged him to meditate on emptiness. He read books and books and books. One said emptiness is blackness, another said emptiness means nothing. One said nothing matters. He knew these were all mistakes. It's not true that the ultimate meaning of life is a black hole or staring at a wall. And if someone tells you that you meditate on the fact that nothing matters, that couldn't be further from the truth. Everything depends on your kindness to others. How do you tie an understanding of ultimate reality to kindness toward others? That's what we're going to be working on now for quite a bit. So if I hold up this and ask you what it is, it's a pen. If a dog came in the room, what would he do with the pen? He'd probably chew on it. So for him, it's a chew toy. To a human, it's a pen. Who's right? Both individuals are right. Both entities are right. How can that be? Well, if the penness is coming from the pen toward me, then both the dog and a human would see a pen, would know it's a pen. But the fact that the human sees it as a pen and the dog sees it as a chew toy means that the reality is coming from the individual onto the pen. Now, if I put the pen down and leave the room, what is it? This is where I have a bit of a confusion, because is the pen even here if I'm not here to project it? But if we go with what Geshe is teaching, he says, if I'm not there to project pen onto this black cylinder, and the dog isn't there to project chew toy on this black cylinder, then it's simply a black cylinder. So the question now is, if it's my mind depends, if the identity depends on my mind identifying it as a pen, is this a conscious process? If you really wanted it to be something else, could you close your eyes and wish hard and hope hard and get it to be something else? Well, let's try it. If you look at the pen, close your eyes and say, I wish this was a stick of gold or of diamond. I really wish it. I wish really hard. And you open your eyes. At least for me, I don't have the karma for that to happen. It's still a pen. It's coming from my mind, but it's not under your conscious control. You're forced to see it in a certain way. And Lord Buddha explained it by the concept of karma. So what does karma mean? We know karma means movement of the mind and what it makes in body and speech. So if I want a pen, I need to provide a pen for somebody else. The reason I have a pen is because of my karma for having given pens to others. So if I want a pen, I need to give a pen to someone who needs it. Like, let's say my wife needs a pen. I give it to her, and my mind, like a video camera, records everything I do and say. So it records this with records that I've given someone who needs something, in this case, a pen. Now, it doesn't have to be a pen. You're giving something somebody needs to them. If I need a pen and I've given others what they need, whether I've given them a pen or not is not as important as the fact that I've given them what they need. So it's really important with karmic correlations not to get obsessed with the detail. For instance, if you need money, yes, giving others money is a direct way of getting money in your life. But if you look at getting money as something you need, then by providing other people with what they need, be it groceries, a place to live, safety, teaching, that will come back to you as getting what you need. Now, one of the laws of karma, well, the 4 laws of karma, it's like gives like, so doing a good deed results in a pleasant result, doing a bad deed results in an unpleasant result. Karma multiplies, that's number 2. If you don't do the karma, don't do the deed, you can't collect the karma. And then karma is sure, it's going to ripen. Well, if you look in the Lamrim Chenmo, there's a section in the Lamrim Chenmo about the magnification of karma, and nowhere in the Lamrim Chenmo does it say your karma doubles every 24 hours. The power doubles every 24 hours. It says it increases, it says it magnifies, but it doesn't double. The only place I've seen it say it's a geometric progression doubling every 24 hours is a teaching Pabonka Rinpoche gave on the Vajrayogini Tantra. Nowhere else in all the places I've looked does it talk about doubling. So I think doubling, and I've talked to several geshes about this, it's not so much that it doubles, but it increases, steadily increases. And the point is, if you do a small good deed, it increases into a large good deed. If you do a small bad deed, it increases into a large bad deed. So you don't want to do a small bad deed thinking it will stay small. And thankfully, a small good deed can ripen into a much larger good deed. So I look into low-level radiation and low-level radiance. Low-level radiation is a kind of, it's insidious. It damages you the more exposure to low-level radiation you have, the more prone you are to get cancer or other bad things. So you don't want to get exposed at all to a low-level radiation. So you don't want to do a small bad deed thinking it won't increase. Now, the term low radiance, there's a little bit of light for having done something good. And as the energy, the seed grows in power, the light becomes brighter and brighter. So do lots of small good deeds. Don't do lots of bad deeds. There's another point that I think is an important thing to bring up. We talk about karma, well, it has to ripen. And that's a bit of a misnomer. if you do a karmic, the path of karma, you've got 4 steps. And until you complete those 4 steps, the karmic path isn't complete. So when you do a bad deed or a good deed, you have a finite time frame to affect that, planting that seed. So if you do the 4 powers of purification during that time, you can completely stop a karma from being planted. So let's say you kill a fly purposely. If when you kill a fly, if right away you do a 4 powers of purification, understanding that you've just created a negative karma that you don't want to ripen, you do the 4 powers perfectly, that basically stops that seed from forming and becoming a seed that's going to multiply and become more of a problem. So there's a caveat to the 4th law of karma that basically says karma must ripen if it hasn't been damaged by the 4 powers of purification. So it's the misnomer is to say it must ripen. It must ripen if you don't do the 4 powers of purification. Okay. So we're going to move from meditation, and he says in his notes, he's going to teach us the essence of wisdom. So now Geshe Michael is going to explain why you personally don't exist in the way you thought. So this is very interesting, and you just have to kind of hold on to your hat and go with the flow. If you understand how you really are, you can change the world in many different ways, eliminate war, hunger, and poverty. The only way to go through this program is this book and understand the Lam Rim is to use your meditative skills. So his teacher asked him to do an experiment to see if he had reached this understanding. It was an artificial experiment to see if he had unlocked the code of reality. Geshe Michael's Lama said, go to Manhattan and start $1 million company. Geshe Michael had no interest in money at the time. He had no interest in business, but his Lama said, go and prove to yourself and others that he was actually going to be able to, what he calls fixing the code, understand how reality really works. So he said to start in New York and start $1 million company to prove that he understands the code. So he went to New York and he started a company with a couple of other people. He reached a $250 million sales. The company that he started reached $250 million sales in the last couple of years. So it's a very successful company. He worked half-time for 6 months, 3 days a week. Then he'd come home and study. After you see the first real workings of reality for the first time, it takes about 20 minutes. All these other really cool things happen. And we're going to discuss that. After you see emptiness directly, you realize that nothing was the way you thought it was. Now, when you look at a pen, you almost see directly the day you gave a pen to someone to create it. You want a pen and automatically you know you need to give it away to create more. Now, after the direct perception of emptiness, you're back in deceptive reality. You still see things slightly wrong, but you know you're wrong. It's the difference between knowing and not knowing. Then you spend the next 500 years getting it right. This is the path of habituation. It involves deep insights into how things work and experiments to prove to you that's the way they work. In order to understand how we go into the sky meditation, which we'll be doing at the retreat in course 2, when you see ultimate reality, you have to understand what emptiness is empty of. So he uses the pink elephant example. Is there a pink elephant, two-headed pink elephant, sitting in your room right now? You don't even have to turn around to look. No, there's no such thing. So that's the lack of an elephant reality in this room. It's the absence of something. Is the thing which isn't there something which generally exists in this world or not? It's a lack of an elephant in this room. Do elephants exist? Yes. Is there a two-headed pink elephant rampaging around this room at the moment? No. Why didn't you turn around to check to see if there was one? Because they don't exist. You don't have to check because they don't exist. Ultimate reality is the absence of something that could never have been there anyway. So we have to understand there's a concept of something not being something else. There's the concept of the simple absence of something. And there's the concept of a positive thing. Emptiness, you have to understand this. Emptiness is the absence of something. It is not there. If I say my wife has not returned from being out, that's a denial, but it's not emptiness. My lovely wife is not here is the absence of something, and that's different. If you believe that you could only get a pen by being kind and sharing with others, would you ever fight with others for a pen? Would it even be possible to fight with others for a pen if you believe the only way to get a pen is to give it to others? You extend this to how countries operate. What's the only way to get oil supplies for your country? Try saying this in Congress, you get shouted out and laughed at. What's the only way to get oil supplies for our country? Share your oil with others. The only way to get renewable energy is to share current supplies with others in need. If everybody in the US and China understood that, would there ever be a war over supplies? So these ideas are very powerful. They're not New Age ideas. They're extremely powerful, but they go against everything we were brought up to understand. Our parents made it clear that if you wanted something, you had to go out and get it. And if that was at the expense of somebody else, so be it. That's a completely wrong way of thinking, but that's how most of the world thinks. Oil you get without sharing doesn't exist. When you fight with another country for oil supplies, do these oil supplies even exist in the way you think? No, they don't. There are no such oil supplies that are self-existent. They exist because of our karma for having provided others with, in the case of energy, a way to stay warm. A gotcha, which is what we call things that can exist the way we think they do. All suffering and war is directed to something that doesn't exist. Everything the world works for, fights over, never existed in the first place. We're going to be discussing this week, this next couple of courses, the classes, the understanding of where reality comes from. A big part of the reason to learn how reality works is to overcome negative emotion in our minds permanently. That's nirvana. Nirvana means to blow out. Our definition of nirvana is the, how does that go? Cessation by direct analysis of that ends your mental afflictions. It doesn't end your bad karma ripening as uncomfortable or unpleasant things. It's very clear, very important to understand that. When you reach nirvana, you no longer respond to a mental affliction in a negative way, but they still ripen. So you're not responding and making more negative karma. You're simply understanding where that came from, and you're not trying to replant it by responding negatively, ignorantly. There are 8 stages of deep meditation, 4 in the form realm and 4 in the formless realm. And there's a preliminary to the first of the ones in the form realm. That's the level you need to get to understand, to have the direct perception of emptiness. You don't need to get to the others. You don't want to get to the others. We teach the 6 perfections: giving, ethics, not getting angry, being happy about doing good things, the ability to meditate and understand reality. The perfection of giving, perfection of moral discipline, perfection of patience, perfection of joyful effort, the perfection of meditation or concentration, and the perfection of wisdom. If you don't understand about reality, if you do the other perfections, the first 5 you'll be doing so without understanding the way things work, and they won't work very well as perfections. The art of getting angry when you should have, for example. There's a way to practice patience about a person who hurts you, which is ignorant. You go to them, you're calm, you say you hurt me, and I'll ask you not to do that anymore. You're reasonable and calm and all that. Maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. That's the problem, because you haven't approached the problem of the person who hurt you with the understanding of where they came from. What's the deeper reality here? You've produced this person who's annoying you. The whole focus of a real spiritual person turns away from the world and onto themselves. So you understand that the person that's irritating you, that insulted you, is coming from nobody else but yourself. To apologize to the person for them getting angry, or you disappointing them or getting angry at them, or that they're getting angry at you, is you're apologizing to something that doesn't exist. The person you need to apologize is to yourself. So next time someone gets angry at you, instead of thinking, well, I need to apologize because I did something to make them angry, you need to realize that the reason they're angry is because you did something. It's your fault, and you need to take care of it, not them. So apologizing to them is nice, but it's not going to be what solves the problem. The problem is you have to stop getting angry yourself. So this whole idea of my saying I don't get angry at people, as I mentioned before, I still get angry at myself in frustration with my Parkinson's. Every time I do that, I'm setting the seeds to see anger in my future. because movement of the mind is what creates karma. And as I move my mind into frustration, I'm setting the seeds to be frustrated in the future. So to blame a Ziploc bag, the designers of a Ziploc bag, for making it difficult to open, you don't really realize until you have a handicap just how insensitive the world is to handicapped people. Now, see, I've said how insensitive the world is to handicapped people. It's not the world. It's me having been insensitive in the past, and that's ripening now to have things that I think are insensitive from their own side. That's coming from me. And the way to fix it is to not be insensitive, make things easy for others, people to use or do. Lord Buddha compares the journey to enlightenment to an eagle flying through the sky. He says that the eagle needs two wings to fly. A bird with one wing cannot go anywhere. They need both wings. One is method, all the kindness you do for others. The other thing is wisdom, understanding what's going on. So our dedication prayer says, by the goodness of what I've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and the collection of wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So you need both merit. You need to do virtuous things, collect the merit, the goodness. And that's what generates the conditions for you to have the direct perception of emptiness and collect the wisdom from doing that. So you can study emptiness all you want, but if you're not doing good deeds, you won't have the merit necessary. You won't generate the virtue and the merit necessary to see emptiness directly. So yes, you have to meditate, learn to meditate deeply, but if you don't do the service, you don't do the virtuous deeds, your meditation won't land on the object and you won't have direct perception of emptiness. But you need the tools to get there. One of the tools is studying emptiness. The other tool is creating the space for it to work, which is the deep meditation, being able to get into a deep meditative process. From the three principal paths, there's this stanza, these stanzas more correctly. So just close your eyes and listen. In the three principal paths, we reach a point where we say, you may master renunciation and the wish, but unless you have the wisdom perceiving reality, you cannot cut the root of cyclic life. Make effort in ways then to perceive interdependence. A person has entered the path that pleases the Buddhas when for all objects in the cycle or beyond, he sees that cause and effect can never fail, and when for him they lose all solid appearance. You've yet to realize the thought of the able as long as two ideas seem to you disparate: the appearance of things, infallible interdependence, and emptiness, beyond taking any position. At some point, the two no longer alternate, but they come together. Just seeing how interdependence never fails brings realization that destroys how you hold to objects, and then your analysis with view is complete. In addition, the appearance prevents the existence extreme. Emptiness that of non-existence. And if you see how emptiness shows in cause and effect, you will never be stolen off by extreme views. So you may master renunciation and the wish. That's well and good. That sets the stage for the direct perception of emptiness. But you have to have the direct perception of emptiness to progress. But you can't get that unless you have the renunciation and the wish. The wish meaning the bodhisattva, the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all beings, that you've turned into action. So Geshe Michael says, I'm putting a curse on you today. You can never really believe that any bad thing is not a reflection of your own behavior. You cannot believe ever again there is not some reflection of your own behavior on you. And I agree, it's a curse. Once you understand the concept of emptiness and karma, you can't teach emptiness without teaching karma. It falls flat on its face. Once you understand or even have an inkling of the concept of karma and emptiness, then you know the world as you see it, if you don't like it, is no one's fault but your own. Period. My getting Parkinson's is my fault. It's not the fault of a chemical company. If the medicines I'm taking work, it's due to my generosity and my helping others get what they need in the past. It has nothing to do with the chemical company that made the pills. If they don't work, it's because I stop people from getting what they need. I inconvenience people with ignorance. Now, the fact that I'm not getting any better is frustrating, but that's coming from my past misdeeds. Just like I could wake up any morning and be cured of Parkinson's. Not because I'm wishing it, but because I took care of someone in a similar situation in the past and got them up and walking. I'm really looking forward to that happening for two reasons. One, it'll make my life more pleasant in terms of physicality, but it's also going to be an incredible demonstration to me of the concept of emptiness and karma. If you want to approach the subject of emptiness, you should go teach yoga in a prison or raise money for the 3-year retreat or raise money for the people typing in the scriptures of ACI. Before we study emptiness, you have to collect an enormous amount of goodness and remove negativities. And in those days, you did that in retreat. Collect good karma, purify negative karma. This is the condition to studying emptiness. Also, you've got to do a lot of asking of help from holy beings. That's a prerequisite. This is not done on your own mind. It's fun to talk to holy beings in your mind. Go home, talk with them. That's another way to get this to happen. When you're in your before meditation, you would start talking to Lord Buddha or your teacher in your mind and thank them and hope that you'll understand their teaching on emptiness or whatever they're about to teach you. That's a very powerful way to get the kind of merit you need to have the karma to see emptiness directly. Now, I've tried looking up the difference between virtue and merit, and I cannot find a source to describe virtue and merit. I looked in the Abhidhamma Kosha. I looked in all the reading for the 18 ACI courses, and I just cannot find that information. Okay. That's pretty much it for today. Any questions? Yes,
Gratefully,
Jackie?
I would thank you so much, dear Lama Sumati. Gratefully, I would like to share a scenario with you and to ask you some further questions from the scenario. So you step into your neighbor's house, they're renting, you find that there are dead bugs everywhere, there's a swarm of, in many rooms, moths, it's just out of control, it's a mess, there's just stuff everywhere, and you see this karma, you want to help, you want to be able to try and protect life if you can, but of course it's their home, so you have to respect that. And if they feel they might want to just get rid of them quickly, do you try and help them at least by cleaning up the bugs, putting them in the rubbish? Is that disrespectful because there's just so much there and you want to help them to clean the environment because they need to move out of that home? But because you can't just let them suffer in that situation, you want to be able to help them. What are the sorts of steps that you would take or guide them to maybe do if they're open, and also respecting if they're not open? How would you accept it if they choose that they want to just eradicate all the bugs and with chemicals or whatever they wish to do it? Are you involved in that because you've seen it, and how would you handle this?
Well, that's an interesting problem, Jackie. How would I handle that? Well, it's a difficult problem because you have somebody who doesn't understand karma and emptiness, and you can't just walk in and teach them about karma and emptiness. That's a bad idea. You have to approach that carefully. I think what I would do is I would find out what the source of the problem is. If they're moths, are they a type of moth that eats clothes? And if they are, you'll have to take all the clothes out of the house because they've probably got eggs for the moths on them. And you have to remove the source of the moths or the bugs. They have to remove them out of the house. You don't kill them. You remove the source, and then you take all the dead bugs and scrape them up and throw them out. And then I guess, as far as I can figure, you'd have to open the windows and try and encourage the bugs, the ones that are still flying around, to leave, because you can't kill them, no matter what your motivation is. If you go and kill them, you're killing sentient beings, and that's not the kind of karma you want to collect. So, as frustrating as it would be, I would just try and shoo them out. Well, here's an example for me. When we lived in Australia, in Canberra, for 6 months when I was 15. 15? Yeah, 15. There were no screens on the windows like there are in the United States, which I've never understood in Australia, but there were no screens. And my brother left the window open in his room, and hordes of black flies got into the kitchen. And I mean hordes. And if you've never been to Australia, you realize the black flies there have no manners. They'll crawl up your nose if you let them. So my mom and dad were gone. My sisters were gone. It was just my brother and I. And we got out our vacuum cleaner and we vacuumed up all the flies. And then we took the vacuum cleaner, because I was ignorant at the time, we took the vacuum cleaner and just let all the flies die in the vacuum cleaner. But that would be one solution, would be to vacuum up all the insects and then take them outside and empty the vacuum bag. Now, yes, you're going to kill some, and that's regrettable. And so you do a 4 powers of purification on that, but the majority of them you save and you free them outside. So that would be one solution. And then you make sure not to replicate the source. So if there were flies because of garbage that was not contained, you package all the garbage up and you make sure that from now on, any of the garbage that is generated is contained properly inside or outside. So I think that would be they make bug vacuums you can buy in the United States that are gentle. There's a small, a light vacuum that sucks them in, but it's not as strong as a vacuum cleaner.
Okay.
And that takes a while. There's really nothing you can do about how long it takes, but that's how I would approach it. Now, I think I described what we did with ants in our retreat cabin. If ants are a problem, find the anthill they're coming from, determine what kind of ants they are, protein, oil, or sugar, and then put offerings at the anthill so they don't have to go anywhere. They just come out of the anthill, harvest the cheese or the sugar, and go back down. They won't be won't be out searching for the food source. It'll be right at their anthill. That should stop the ants. That's setting the karma to stop the ants from coming. If they don't stop right away, it's not because they didn't like what you put out. It's because you haven't ripened all the karma for having that irritation. In our case, they didn't come back into the cabin. We just had to keep making sure that they understood that we were making offerings to them at their anthill, and our karma ripened for that to happen. So I don't know
Thank
if
you.
that helps, but that's what I do.
And if you find that you offer these suggestions and they may feel that they still wish to do something quicker because they have no patience and they just want to get rid of the scenario because there is a time frame that's pending on it, is that, if you've at least thought of these things, but you have to accept their choices as well, is that acceptable?
To me, it is. You've offered an opinion. You've offered a solution. I don't think it's argumentative to tell them they're wrong. This is what I do. This is why I do it.
Okay.
And if they don't, then don't participate in it.
Yeah.
You just say, well, okay, this is the best I can do. This is why I'm doing it. And they don't understand you don't want the karma or destroying life. There's only so much you can do.
Okay.
But having said that, in the future, when someone suggests something to you, you need to be able to explain to them why you don't want to do it, or better yet, listen to their reasons why you should do it. Because what's happening is they're not agreeing to do it because in the past, you were argumentative and not open to suggestions. So the suggestion you're doing is not, you're suggesting is a peaceful, appropriate solution. And in the past, what you did was give options, was ignore people's attempts to help you because you knew better. So when someone asks for your advice, now with your wisdom, you give them the advice your best advice, and you leave it at that. If they don't agree, that's your karma too.
So just to recap, if that's okay, take out some of the clothes and just gently, I guess, wave them around to just let them go if they're, because some of them are probably dead, you know, they're just they're in everything. Carpet, rug, everything. It's really severe.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation because if they're in carpet rug that's attached to the floor, like a fully carpeted house, then it's difficult to get bugs out of that without killing them. I really don't have a solution other than what I've given you. The alternative is to accept the karma that you're taking on, and then when you're done, do a 4 powers of purification right away, and hope that then wish that will take care of the bad karma for killing the bugs. But yeah, that's a tough scenario. Anybody have anything to add to that? Any good ideas? See how much easier it was when you were ignorant. You just go in and kill everything. And that's you think you've solved the problem by doing that, but you've just put off the problem to reoccur in the future. So you haven't really solved anything. Jackie, keep coming up with these questions.
Believe me, I
encourage
have
you to do it.
many to come because I'm facing so much. Honestly, like personally, I'm going through so much for others. So thank you for the opportunity to share these questions. It's really appreciated.
Oh, you're welcome. That's what I'm here for. I wish I had a more complete answer, but I really don't. That's sometimes you have to take it on and just accept the fact that it's not the best solution.
And if extermination is something that's already been tried before, which you weren't involved in, and then they choose to make that decision again, are you taking on that karma because you've been in that experience and you've been in that environment?
Well, if you haven't made the decision, if they make the decision to kill the bugs through an exterminator, that's not your decision. You're not going to take on the karma for having done that. If you make the decision to do it, then you'll take on that karma.
Yeah.
So if you try to convince them not to do it and they do it anyway, they're doing the karmic deed. The path of karma is theirs, not yours.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Thank you
any
so
other
much.
questions? Yes, Pei-Ling?
Oh, teacher, you are so alert. Teacher, I have question. I would like to ask how to deal with pride. I find that I have this problem with me. Let me introduce, give you more information about myself. I don't really want to get recognition from others, and I don't really want to achieve something big. I'm a quite relaxed person. I like to open mouth and share with people what I know. I find that it's two reasons I do that. One is out of love. Second is I find that if I share with other person quickly after I learn something, it is the fast way for me to learn and memorize the thing. But somehow I realized that I have pride within me. teacher, I noticed that I have this problem. So this bring mental affliction to me, and I don't want to hurt others. I don't know how to deal. Please tell me.
I don't understand. You're frightened?
Hmm?
I didn't understand. You said you have frightened?
Mm,
Restate what your question is. I am not understanding it. Are you fearful of something?
oh, no.
No.
My question is how to stop pride.
How to stop fright?
Pride.
Pride.
Yes.
Oh, pride. Thank you.
Which I don't know where it come from.
Right. Okay. How to stop pride.
Oh.
Thank you, Tatiana. How to
Mm.
stop pride. Well, pride comes from, in the past, disagree, feeling that you're offering a solution to something and then making sure, working hard to make people believe you're right.
Yes.
So you've done that in the past. So now to counter that, so burn it off, accept it. So it's ripening now with people trying to convince you that you're wrong. So instead of arguing with them, thank them for their suggestion, and don't argue with them. Now, whether you agree, whether you carry out their suggestion is up to you, whether you like their suggestion, but you have to accept it, because with pride, to me, pride means I'm right, you're wrong, and I need to convince you of that. Whereas
Yes.
if you're just trying to help, you say, well, this is what I would do. And if they say, well, I don't want to do that, you just say, well, I can't help you because this is the right thing to do in my opinion. But you don't argue with them, because to me, pride is argument. I'm right, you're wrong. And so because my pride says I'm better than you are, I know more than you do. So it's not that you can't have an opinion. It's that you don't want to force that opinion on others. And I've had that problem myself. A lot of people at Diamond Mountain consider me to be quite arrogant. And they're wrong. They're self-existently wrong, because I'm not arrogant. I'm kidding. I'm not, they obviously can't self-existently be wrong. But what I do, I understood that people thought that. And so what I try to do was explain, here's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and explain it to them. And if they didn't agree with that, that was my karma ripening for being argumentative, and I had to stop being argumentative. What I finally found it worked the best in my life was to take a situation where I was trying to convince somebody of something and turn it around so that it was their idea. And that's a skillful means. That takes a lot of work. I had a situation where I was involved in buying an expensive piece of scientific equipment, and I was having trouble with one of the members of my lab. And I went up to him and I said, which of these two companies would you buy this device from? I knew which company I wanted to buy it from, but I wanted his opinion, because I wanted him to be involved in the decision and have it be his decision. So he chose the company I would not have chosen. I bought that piece of equipment, and several weeks later, after it came and he started using it and found it wasn't the equipment he wanted, he came to me and said, "Why'd you buy that equipment? It's not what we needed." And I looked at him and I said, "Because you suggested I buy it." So it was his opinion. It was his decision. And so rather than my saying, "No, we're not going to buy that equipment, we're going to buy the one I want because I know better," I just had him make the decision. And that stopped him from thinking I was arrogant because I let him make the decision. So don't argue back, offer a suggestion, and work hard in the future to just offer suggestions and not force opinions on others. Does that make sense?
Yes, teacher. Teacher, how about if too much? How about if I love my family and my parents, and if I too much believe my opinion is right, how to change myself? I mean,
Well,
if my family, my parents did something that I think not good for them, and I just too much think that, oh, I'm good, better, and then I try to convince them how to stop this when the problem come. So when the situation come to me, how I can think quickly and do faster, stop myself at that point.
well,
Mm.
that's what you're working on. The
Mm.
first thing to do is they make a suggestion, don't answer right away. This is how I do it. I'm not sure this is the best advice, but this is how I do it. I would simply say, well, let's see, one of my dear friends who is no longer on the planet, she used to look at me and say, "David, thank you for sharing," which is her way of saying, "I don't agree with you." But she didn't say that. She said, "Thank you for sharing." So they have an opinion. You thank them for their opinion. You don't say anything back right away. You say, "Thank you for your opinion. I'll think about it." Think about it, and then come back to them and say, "You don't agree." You don't have to agree with them, but you don't want to argue with them. You say you don't agree, and they say, "Well, you're wrong, Pei-Ling. We're right." And you just have to say, "This is my opinion. I hope that you'll agree with me. If you don't, stop asking for my opinion." Now, if
Maybe
you're
I don't
going,
understand them.
if you're going to give them the opinion anyway,
Mm.
then you're setting the seeds to have this come back to you. So they come to you, they're doing something you don't agree with. You kindly, gently suggest a solution. If they don't agree with you, then you just have to accept the fact that they're not agreeing with you. And it's tough when they're your family, especially your parents, because that's a good way to alienate you from your parents. But agreeing with them and having them do something that's not good for them is not a solution either. It's a tough situation, but try that. Try to thank them for their suggestion and walk away from the problem and go back to it the next day or later in the day and investigate why you think it's a bad idea. If you don't have a good reason for it to be a bad idea, then it's your pride, your inability to say that you're wrong.
Mm.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying think about what they're saying and see if there's a modicum of problem that from your side, because you've generated this and your karma for having argued or not taking other people's advice. So you've got to find out why and how you weren't taking advice before. For instance, someone doesn't, this is very detailed answer, but for instance, working with plumbing, there's a way to do plumbing, several different ways to do things in plumbing, but only one of them is really the right way.
Mm.
And so you explain to them, I explained to somebody how to do this particular procedure, and they don't do it that way. And I say, okay, the reason it's leaking is you did this and you need to do that. And it's not an opinion, it's a solution. It is the right way of doing it because that's I have the karma for that to work. Think of virtue as a character trait or qualities. Well, that's interesting. Merit is like points. Well, that's a question I actually have that I was going to ask everybody before I ended class for today. So Pei-Ling, try that and let me know if it worked or didn't work. That's my best advice now. Now, what Natalia brought up is something I wanted to ask all of you. I'm trying to understand the difference between merit and virtue in Buddhism. In a dictionary, they tend to say that merit and virtue are the same thing. I don't think it is. I think merit is a collection of virtue, but I can't find a definition. So I'd like you, before next class, to investigate what you think the difference is between merit and virtue. And we'll talk about that next class. Because we talk about the collection of merit and wisdom, and that's the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make in our dedication. But we don't talk about virtue. You do virtuous deeds. You have meritorious service. You have the 10 virtuous deeds or the 10 non-virtues, but you don't talk about the 10 non-merit or 10 meritorious deeds. So they aren't really the same thing. But I can't find a definition that doesn't include, so merit would includes virtue in the definition, and virtue includes merit in the definition, and that doesn't help me any. So I put that out there. I've written this down on a sticky note. I'm going to put this near my computer, and next, this coming Friday, we'll discuss it. Now, I have one question, Pei-Ling, for you. We're going to be teaching during Chinese New Year.
Oh,
Are you going to be able to still attend? Or you can listen to the recording.
oh,
'Cause my students and my other students in Malaysia were taking two classes off because of Chinese New Year. But we're going to continue. Our classes are going to continue. So if you if you can't attend because of Chinese New Year celebrations, just go ahead and listen to the recordings.
oh, Teacher, Chinese New Year, I afraid I cannot come, but you just keep going because I have to take care of my family, my relative. I can't just do my study, and this is not the practice of Buddhism.
That's okay. Now, I understand Chinese New Year and your obligations.
Mm,
That's why I'm saying just make sure to listen to the classes when you can, and you'll be
mm,
caught up with where we are.
mm.
Okay, here's our dedication. I will free all those who have yet to be freed. I will save all those who have yet to be saved. I will comfort all those who have no comfort, and I will deliver all beings beyond grief. So this is from Jezong Kapa and his Golden Harvest of Attainments writing. And let me just explain each of the phrases. Those who have yet to be freed are beings that have attained great power but still locked in the chains of mental affliction obstacles and obstacles to omniscience. Those who have yet to be saved are high practitioners among the listeners and self-made Buddhas who have yet to be saved from the obstacles to omniscience. Those who have no comfort are those that live in the realms of hell. And to deliver all those beyond grief means to take all of the above to the ultimate nirvana, total enlightenment itself. So you're trying to help all beings. This is just another way of stating that. I really like this. I will free all those who have yet to be freed. I will save all those who have yet to be saved. I will comfort those who have no comfort, and I will free all beings beyond grief. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay. Thank you all. We'll see you, most of you, next this coming Friday, and we'll continue on our quest to move along the path and reach our total enlightenment. Okay.
Thank you, dearest Lama,
You're
for
welcome.
being with us. And thank you for your beautiful kindness to answer the questions from experience and just what came to you. Deeply appreciate offering your suggestions and really.
I'll run this by my wife. She's the other person who has good ideas. She'll probably have an elegant solution I didn't think of, but that's okay. That's why she's my lovely wife.
Thank you,
Okay.
teacher, for come to our life. Please stay with us.
Well,
we can-
I intend to. Thank you for translating, Svetlana. I hope I'm not making it too difficult for you.
Mm.
Okay. And thank you, Natalia, for all you're doing. I do appreciate it. Okay. Bye-bye.
Muchas
Bye-bye.
gracias. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Gracias.